Hey, welcome back to the Girl Be Free podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan, your community cultivator and founder of Be Free Project. I help women who are ready to flourish, feel fulfilled, and be free to show up for themselves. I am deeply passionate about community, sisterhood, and personal growth. So if that's your jam, keep on listening. And now let's get into the show. Hey, welcome back to another episode. I'm so glad that you are here for another week. So, this week I am loving sparkling water. Now, let me tell you, there's a little story to this. I remember several years ago, my aunt was drinking sparkling water, and I'm like, oh, that is disgusting, and could not get into it. Fast forward to now, and I'm like, I love it. And I don't have a specific brand that I love. I just love sparkling water. Trader Joe's does have this blueberry lemonade that my friend Monique put me onto that's really good. But really, any flavor, any kind, I just love it, especially when it's really cold. Like you get it right out the freezer or the refrigerator. I'm in love. So that is what I am enjoying right now is sparkling water. All right, on to today's episode, which is titled Breaking Free My Story. So I was having a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and we were just, chatting it up. And she was like, "What is your story?" And I was like, "Huh?" She's like, "What is your story?" And I'm like, "Well, you know my story." And she's like, "No, tell me your story." And so I began to tell her my story, and we were on FaceTime, and she was so engaged, like she had never heard my story before. And it made me realize that there's so many people in my audience that don't know my story. And I even got an email recently of something very similar that someone wanted to know more about me. And so I know that I share bits and pieces in different ways, but like to really have an episode dedicated to how I broke free and started living this life that I get to live now. I don't think I've ever done anything like this before. And so I'm going to kind of share this so that way it's housed somewhere so I can refer back to. But as I was telling my friend this story, she was like, wow, like I never knew these things about you. And it's very fascinating. And I'm like, well, thank you. So let's get started. My story, the part that I want to start with that, because I had to think about what's the pivotal moment in my life where things started to shift for me. And it was when I was 15 years old. And when I was 15 years old, I was living with my mom at the time, and she had put me in a position where I had to make a choice. I could either stay or continue to live with her or to move with my grandmother. And I made a decision to live with my grandmother because I felt that my home was unsafe. I didn't feel comfortable any longer being in the space with her. And so I chose to leave and go stay with my grandmother. And at 15 years old, I didn't know how powerful that choice that I made at such a young age would be. But that choice and that decision, it would be something that would be the foundation of how I live and show up for myself. So that was 15 years old. In ninth grade, so when I started high school, I went to John F. Kennedy High School in Cleveland, Ohio. I met my three best friends at the time. And we were like enmeshed. We were so close. We did everything together. We had classes together. We hung out at each other's houses. We even went to Freaknik in, I think in 97 or 98, which I think was like the year or maybe the year before when they stopped doing it. We actually told our parents that we were going on a college tour, and we took a Greyhound bus, all four of us, 17-year-olds, from Cleveland to Atlanta, Georgia, to attend the Freaknik. And our parents believed us. And we actually stayed with one of my friend's cousins. And when I tell you we had the time of our lives, so much so we came back to school that following Monday. And we all had our Freaknik t-shirts on, and everybody, all our friends was asking us about it and stuff. And it was just like so much fun. Anywho, these young ladies, they were my sisters. So that is when I started building community at a very young age. And two of the friends, we're still friends to this day, and it's been, I believe, 26 years of friendship. So that was in. And then when I was 17, I met my husband. We used to work at McDonald's together. I worked the drive-through, he worked the grill. We met when we were 17. We started dating at the age of 18, and we have been together ever since. When it was time to go off to college, so two of my friends, we all four of us was going to go. Let me kind of rewind. All four of us was going to go to college together because that's how close we were. And we had applied to go to Clark Atlanta University because we loved Atlanta so much after going to the Freaknik. And two of us got room and board, two of us got something else. And it didn't work out where we were all able to go together. So two young ladies, two of the friends, they stayed and they went into Ohio University. And then my other friend and I, we went to Tuskegee in Alabama for our first year of college. What an amazing experience. Like to be in an HBCU. I had a cousin that was attending there with, at the time. So amazing, so much fun. And we ended up, both of us actually ended up transferring after the first year and went to a school in Ohio. But yeah, I met my husband when I was 17. We started dating at 18. So when it was time to go to college, so I went to, like I said, Tuskegee University, and he went to the military. He was a Marine. And even though we went in two separate directions, we maintained a long distance relationship. So again, I want to point this out that I was very intentional, even at a young age, with community and keeping people close to me because I really value relationships. And so, yeah, we maintained a long distance relationship for, let's see, from maybe like 4 or 5 years, I want to say. And then when he got out the military and I got out of college, he proposed soon after, and we got married at the age of 23. And I know now looking back, like, oh my gosh, 23 getting married, what did I know? I didn't know a lot. All we knew was that we were in love with each other and we wanted to be together. So we got married at 23. We had a beautiful wedding at the church. And we had our first child at the age of 26, was when I had my daughter. And I was a stay-at-home mom for about 20 months with her because I didn't want nobody watching my baby and I wanted to have that experience. So I was able to stay home with her for the first 20 months of her life. And then I would go on and work in corporate America. I had my second child at the age of 28, and that was my son. Um, and I stayed home with him for about, I believe, 5 months because at this time was in corporate America, so I was already working at a job, and I wasn't able to stay off as long as I was with my daughter. And I will say my first big job, if you will, was at the bank. And I started off, I believe, in customer service and worked my way up to a mortgage underwriter. And then at the age of 28, I purchased my first home with my husband. We were very excited about that because we wanted stability for the children. We wanted our own space. And so it was really nice to be able to do that together. So as you can see, my life has been very consistent, right? So the friends, college, marriage, babies, all the jazz. When I was working in corporate America and I was working my way up, I thought in my mind this was about to be the thing. Like, oh yeah, I got the good job, I got the house, I got the kids, I got the husband, I'm in church, we're in ministry, we're doing all the things. And I felt like something was missing from my life. Like I felt a void. I felt like I just felt lost. And at this point, when I started to have these feelings, the kids were young. I believe they were toddlers or kids, little children. And that's when I started to feel like, okay, there has to be more to life than being a wife and a mother. And I started thinking about, well, what else do I want for my life outside of these roles? Because what society told me was happiness, I don't feel so happy. And I remember hearing Oprah talk about purpose, seeing things on TV, and I'm like, what is my purpose? I really want to know more of that. Well, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know. So I was talking to a friend and I was like, I don't know what I should do next. The job is okay. It's customer service. I have this college degree. I'm not using it. And she was like, well, why don't you become a librarian? And she made that statement because I love to read books. And so she thought that was fitting, and I thought she was right. So I applied to graduate school to get my master's in library science. And this was my schedule. I want to point this out. So the kids were small, And I had signed up for the first semester of college. I was working, I believe, a schedule at the bank from like 10 a.m. to like 9 p.m. And I had signed up to take two online classes. I believe my son had to still be a baby, and then my daughter was like a toddler or so. And my mother in law would come over in the evenings to help with the kids. And that's what I was doing. I was working those long shifts at work, taking two classes online to pursue a degree that I really wasn't interested in, but because my friend thought that that was something I should do, that's what I decided to do. And I had burned myself out. And I ended up withdrawing from class the same semester because I'm like, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. It ended up costing me money, of course, but it was definitely the best decision because I was pursuing something that really wasn't for me. Like, just because I love to read books doesn't mean I want to be a librarian because that was never a dream of mine. In fact, I didn't know what my dream was at the time. And so then I would continue to work and do all the things. And I still yearn to know, like, well, what is my purpose in life? And I now know that I was asking for it prematurely because during the same time frame, I think my mother wound started to become more present when I had kids. I mean, they always had been there and they showed up in different ways. But when I had kids, I started seeing patterns in myself that I didn't like. And I talked about this on previous episodes of the podcast around the motherless child. And that's when I decided to go to therapy. And that was at the age of 32 because of the patterns that I was seeing. And so I met my therapist. She attended the church that I was going to, and she told me about this group called Healing the Mother Wounds. And around the time that I went, I believe the class was starting like the following couple of weeks or something. And I was in therapy for 4 months and really working through the mother wounds. And as I was doing this inner work and healing and growing, there was also another change that was happening in me as well. And doing that work was the first time ever, maybe, that I started putting my mental and emotional health, like making it a priority. And so after I completed that class, it was like, okay, whew, you can breathe now, right? And I was like, I want to cut my hair off. And so at this point, I had transitioned out of a relaxer and I had been wearing my natural hair for several years, I believe, at this point. And I had grew it out and it was long. And but it was a lot of work, detangling, conditioning, deep conditioning, twisting, twist outs, all of that. And I was getting over it. Plus, I had a daughter and I had to do her hair. So I was like, you know what? I want to cut my hair off. And because I started seeing pictures of this young lady on Instagram, and a lot of ladies like with these short mohawk looks, and I said, I'm gonna do it. And I did it. I went to a salon and cut it all off. And when I did that, I felt so liberated and felt so free. Like, oh, I was becoming more of myself. And these decisions may seem small, but for me, they were big. And let me tell you why they were big. I am used to being very cautious, very rigid, and very just structured in my life. And so I play by the rules. Like, if this is what needs to be done, this is what I'm going to do. I don't color outside of the lines. I didn't color outside of the lines. And so anything outside of my norm was like a big to do. So cutting off my hair was a huge deal for me because, transitioning from relaxer to natural and then growing it out and long and all that jazz and to then cut it all off. And I've been wearing it short now since I believe 2012 is when I did that. And so after I cut my hair off, that was, I believe, let's just say late 2012. In August of 2013, that was the month that I was registering my son for kindergarten. And the day that I was doing that, I got the news. I had took a vacation day from work, and I got the news that the bank that I was working at, the site was permanently closing, and that everyone will be losing their jobs, and you would have to find a new job. And the day that I got the news, I was sitting in my car because I had just dropped my son off. And when the director told me, I remember tears welling up in my eyes because, even though because let me point this out, I wasn't happy at my job. It was just a job. It wasn't purposeful work. It was just something I did every day to make money. And I was not happy, but I didn't know what my next step would be. And I didn't even know where to look for that. And so when we got the news that it was closing, I'm like, and like I said, the tears started welling up in my eyes. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I don't have a plan B. I don't know what to do next. And God spoke to me so clearly and said, this is your opportunity to take a chance on yourself. And I heard it in my right ear. And I believe I talked about this on a podcast before, how God speaks to me in the right side of my body. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have no idea what I was going to do next. A little afraid because I made a significant salary that it took care and or supported and helped in my household. I didn't have a plan. But for some reason, I decided to trust that voice and I leaned into it. And so when we got the news in August of 2013, we wouldn't be officially laid off until October. So we had to go to work every single day, knowing that we wouldn't have a job after October. And when I tell you it was the most depressing thing every day because there had been people that had been working there for years and years and years and thought that they were going to retire. And so there was a lot of negative energy. And the bank did as much as they could. Like they had career fairs, they had resume building, different classes and things. So I performed because I'm like, oh, I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to do these things. I updated my resume. But I kept going back to what I heard in the car. This is your opportunity to take a chance on yourself. And so when the site permanently closed, I remember telling my husband, I said, I'm going to kind of take time to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I collected unemployment, I collected my severance package, and I started my self discovery journey. Now, I want to point out, like I mentioned earlier, I have a bachelor's degree in business information systems. I have a master's in marketing communications at this point. I could have easily went back and got a job somewhere, but my soul was like, no, you're not. And I was listening to that voice. And the only reason I feel like I was able to hear so clearly is because I started doing the healing work around my mother wounds. And I was starting to become more into myself. Like I started reading some personal development books, like the Four Agreements. I had cut my hair off. So I was transitioning in the self discovery journey or on it or whatever. And so so we were laid off at this point. I said, okay, what is going to be my next move? So I started asking myself questions that you can find in the Free Your Mind journal that I sell, and I'll link to it in the show notes. And some of the questions were, what makes you smile? What are you grateful for? Who do you need to forgive and why? What do you want for your life and how are you going to show up for yourself? So those are the type of questions I started asking. I started journaling. I've been journaling forever, for years and years and years. And so I was like, oh, and I was being very honest with what I wanted and what I needed. And as I was writing, I started getting more clarity. So then I reached out to a friend and I was like, hey, I'm trying to figure out my next move. I don't know what I should do. What do you think? And she was like, you should be a life coach. And I said, what is a life coach? Because I've been in corporate America all this time. I didn't have any entrepreneur friends, anything like that. So I'm like, what is a life coach? And so I Googled life coach, life coaching or something. And I was like, wait a minute. I hold my friends accountable all the time. I'm always motivating, asking questions, encouraging them. I'm so positive. Like every description that I was reading about a life coach, I had been doing that for free for years. And I had no idea that it was a title for it. It's just what I naturally do. I don't have to try. You can tell me that you want to write a book, and I will help you map out how to write the book. You can tell me that you want to start working out. I can help you come up with a plan to do it and hold you accountable. So it was something that came so natural that I didn't know that it was a thing for it. And so when she said that, I said, "Okay, I'm going to do that. I can do this." I don't know where the courage came because again, I play by the rules. I stick to the plan. I didn't have friends that were entrepreneurs like that. But again, that voice said, this is your opportunity to take a chance on yourself. And so it just so happened that during that same time frame, I came across this 6-week launch yourself boot camp or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this. Maybe it can help me figure out how to start a business. So during that time, as I was taking this 6-week launch yourself boot camp, I was like, oh, well, what will I name my coaching company? And I remember being in church one day and I was on my phone and I was looking at an app and it was like a Kia's devotional app. And I had been pondering with a name. I had a list of names in my phone and nothing really resonated. And as I opened up the app for that particular day, it was titled Be Free. And I was like, that's it. Be free, right? And I remember I had went over my friend's house, or we were talking maybe after church or whatever. And I was like, okay, I got to come up with, it can't just be free. It has to be something with it. And at this time, Beyonce had the Beyonce experience. I'm like, the Be Free experience. I'm like, no, that's not it. And then I was like, Be Free Project. And I was like, the reason that I want to call it Be Free Project is because I'm always working on myself. Like I'm always doing something. I'm always working on some area of my life. And she was like, you should buy the domain name. And I'm like, what do you mean buy the domain name? She's like, buy the domain. I'm like, what? So we go to her house, or we go to her apartment after church, and she was like, just see if it's available. And I'm like, okay. And so she tells me where to go to purchase it, and it was available, befreeproject.com. And I remember being so nervous and excited, like, oh my God, I have a domain. I think I paid like $11 for it or something like that. And it was such a big deal for me. Such a big deal because, again, coming from corporate, now transitioning into entrepreneurship. And so as I came up with the name, it was now Be Free Project. I started my website on Tumblr, which I don't know, are people still on Tumblr? And then eventually I had my website built for me. And so that's how, my story in a nutshell, and the rest is really history. But wait, let me go back. So the reason that Be Free Project felt so right in my life is because for years and years and years in my journal, which I wouldn't know this until later, but I have wrote so often over the years, I just want to be free. I just want to be free from the pain, from corporate, from feeling stuck in my life, because that was the main thing. I felt stuck. I felt lost. I felt confused. I felt like I was missing something. And I wanted to be free from all of that. And I had wrote about it. I didn't know that at the time when I chose the name for the company. But what I now know to be true is that God had already put Be Free Project in me. So when He told me in the car to take a chance on yourself, that was the chance He was telling me. But I would have to do my own work for everything to come full circle. And that's so powerful to me because this company, this business, this platform, this space has always been there, but there was so much work that I had to do to get where I'm at today. And so I launched Be Free Project in February of 2014. And I remember being so nervous to send out an email of what I was doing. Within the first 5 to 6 weeks, I had booked 2 coaching clients for a program that I had created within that boot camp that I was a part of. And this was a $649 program at the time. And I don't know how that I had a boss to do that. I mean, good God, I don't know what I was doing, but I did it. And I had 2 people purchase from me. I believe that was the price. And I had 2 people that had purchased and who had invested in it. One was in Ohio, one was in New Jersey. Because I believe at that point I had updated my Instagram page and I didn't have nearly as many followers as I do today. Not followers, I don't like to call them followers, supporters. And yeah, and I just built from there. So I started off doing the one-on-one coaching because that's what I was doing. And then a few months after I launched the company, I was like, where are people getting together to talk about purpose and dreams and visions and personal development, self-development, that kind of thing? And I couldn't find spaces like that. And I'm like, but I want to have these conversations. And I believe that there's other people here in the city that may want to do it too. So I Googled and I couldn't find anything like what I was looking for. So I decided to start hosting events. Now, let me point something out to you. The only events that I ever had was a graduation party, bridal showers, baby showers. I ain't never hosted no event before, but I had this idea that women wanted to get together. And so I helped my first one, and my friends, they're real estate agents. They let me borrow, or excuse me, I guess rent out their conference room. And so I did on a Saturday afternoon, and I had 13 women showed up. Uh, Several of them were my friends, several of them were not. Um, and they came, and I was so nervous that I sat down in my chair the whole time with my legs shaking under my dress. I had a notebook that I was holding and reading from, and I was so nervous. But I did it. And so that propelled me to do it again and again and again. And now I don't know, I've hosted over 60, 70 events at this point, whether in person or online. And I'm so glad that I did it because it showed me that women, positive, like minded women, wanted to get together. They wanted to be around other women. They wanted to have conversations that would um, move them, if you will. And I started something. And over time, I would get hired to speak at different events and speak on panels. I also created products from this. So I created the Girl Be Free affirmation cards, the Free Your Mind journal. And specifically with the journal is because people would ask questions all the time, like, how did you get started? What did you do to start your personal growth journey? And I'm like, I had to ask myself very specific questions so I can figure out what I wanted. And these are the questions. So I work with my friend Brittany, who was a graphic designer, and these are the questions that are most important, and it centers around like getting clarity, mindset, action, and empowerment. And there's 40 different prompts, and there's coloring pages and affirmations and all that in it. And I'm like, this is the tool. This is the starting place that I need every single woman to start with. And so I created the journal, and over time, the affirmation cards. I've created digital workbooks and courses. And I guess the final piece to all of this is that, I used to have a Facebook group with thousands of people in it. And I'm like, this is great, but I really want to support people in a different way. And so I launched the Be Free Inner Circle a couple of years ago. And it was because I wanted to have positive, like minded women together. I wanted to create real sisterhood and accountability with women who were ready to show up for themselves. And as you can see, through the course of my life, community has always been important. Sisterhood has always been important. Holding people accountable has always been important to me. So it was just a natural thing for that to be the next step. And I'm so glad that I did, because so many amazing women are connected all over the world together, as well as, they have so many major accomplishments that they've achieved just by being a part of the community, whether it's making new friends in the group, purchasing their first home, going back to school, um, all the things, so many different things, so many launching businesses, publishing companies. I mean, you name it, they're doing it in there. Learning how to be more vulnerable, learning how to trust their spouse. I mean, because of the conversations that we have in there, it's very well rounded, where it's all about personal growth. How am I being better in every single area of my life? And also, I forgot to mention with launching this podcast, I remember when I had the Facebook group and I would ask the community, I said, hey, what should I do next? And they, overwhelmingly, the responses were they wanted a podcast. And so I started the Girl Be Free podcast a few years ago because I love to talk. I love to share and all the things. I'm like, that's the perfect next step. And now here we are with over 110,000 or whatever downloads just because I decided to show up. And now, not only am I showing up on here, but I get to invite my friends on here to interview for the podcast to give you a different perspective. And it's been a beautiful journey. It's been a very, very beautiful journey that I am so proud of. And that's my story. That is me breaking free from what society has said I should do, what family feels I should do, and breaking free out of my box to really create the life that I want to live. And after I told this story to my friend, she was like, wow, you know, your story took so much courage, and you've had so much confidence in making one choice after the next, after the next. And then she was like, and you've always been about community. So it's so fitting and it makes so much sense why you're so passionate about the work that you do because you've been doing this your whole life since you were young. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about it like that because I didn't think that it was confidence. I'm like, I just made decisions. But even, and I forgot to point this out, like when I launched my company after I lost my job, I also pulled my kids out of school to homeschool them because I didn't like the school system. You know, our neighborhood has changed over time, and my husband and I didn't like what they were learning and what they were being exposed to. So I pulled my kids out of school and I homeschooled my children for 5 years while running a company full time. And again, that's just a choice that I made. And so, if, as you can see, the life that I live is very unconventional. It's not typical, and everything is about being free in my life. And so, this is why I'm so passionate about teaching it to other women because nothing in my life is boxed in. I don't like to feel confined. You know, it took that first choice when I was 15 years old that would build the momentum to make all of these other choices because my end goal, my number one value is freedom. And I have to feel free in every area of my life or I feel like I'm dying. So when I talked about in the previous or in the episode a little bit ago about becoming Siobhan and this new season in my life, I'm very serious about that. And so as I'm doing this work, it's not just for me, but it's to empower women to show up for yourself and do the work as well. So your action step this week is to invest in yourself and buy the Free Your Mind Journal. And the reason I'm telling you to buy the Free Your Mind Journal if you do not have it is because now is time for you to ask yourself some very important questions so that you can break free in your own life. And I'll drop the link in the show notes. The website is freeyourmindjournal.com. And until you become self-aware of what you want and start to get clarity and shifting your mindset, you're never going to be able to show up for yourself. And if you already have the Free Your Mind Journal, pull it back out and see if what you wrote the first time, if it still aligns with where you're at today. But that is the recommendation or the action step this week is to invest in the Free Your Mind Journal. Start to do your inner work because as you can see, my path, you know, it was just steps, little bitty steps that I was taking. And it's been a journey. Um, it's been some ups and downs, some highs and lows. And now, when I tell you I'm in my glow up season, that's exactly what I'm in. I've been running my company full time as an entrepreneur for 6 years. There have been moments when I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Wanting to quit. And every time I get ready to quit, and like, this is too hard for me. God put someone in my life to remind me why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. And now, with the thousands and thousands of supporters that I have all across the social media platforms, email lists, or what have you, I know that my work that I'm doing is so huge and the impact that I'm making is phenomenal. And that the words that are coming out of my mouth is changing lives. And that is so powerful. And so I know very clearly why I'm here, which is my purpose is to be a light and empower others to be free. And I get to do that every single day. And I get to do that because I chose to show up for myself. I choose every single day, I make a decision to show up for myself in every single area of my life. And I want the same for you. And until next time, girl, be free. Hey BFFs, I want to personally invite you to BeFreeInnerCircle.com, your community for real sisterhood where women are showing up and doing the work. Whether you're still trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, or you need accountability to keep pushing forward to reach your goals, the Be Free Inner Circle is the community for you. You can expect curated content that will support you on becoming the best version of yourself, live office hours and Q&A sessions where we chat about things like overcoming self-doubt, building your confidence, practicing self-care without guilt, and so much more. Virtual live events from book clubs and workshops with guest speakers, and a supportive and active community of women that will encourage you, hold you accountable, cheer you on, and give you honest feedback and advice. It's the perfect place to be for women who are ready to show up, flourish, and be free. Join today at BeFreeInnerCircle.com.